Okay, welcome everyone again. You guys can hear me? Well, cool. So, after the previous lovely chat, now we're going to continue from where we left almost with my colleagues, with my friends, on the kind of future of Web3 gaming and gaming together, and impact of Web3 gaming on gaming, and vice versa, probably. So let me introduce my colleagues. Ibrahim Kaya is from Suji Games, and I have Mert Deveci from Troy, the co-founder of Troy. I am Ersin Taşkın, the co-founder of Inventuna Games or Heroes Chained, as you can see. I'm also one of the co-founders of Dapim.io. Okay, so why don't you introduce yourselves? Start with Ibrahim, you first.
Yeah, thank you, by the way. It's really great to be here to get on the stage. I'm Ibrahim Kaya, one of the co-founders of Suji Games. Actually, we have been developing mobile games since 2018 with my co-founder Bener Bozkurt. We not only developing the hyper-casual games, but we're also publishing them. We have been published several games, 12 games on hyper-casual, have 3 million installs so far, and we still have 500,000 daily active users. But since the beginning of this year, we start experimenting with the blockchain because we do really believe the technology behind it, not only the NFTs and tokens, all the stuff, but we do really believe the technological revolution on the blockchain. So we want to focus here more, and we are kind of rebranding ourselves. We still have on the web, mobile gamings, but we also have rebranding ourselves for the Web3. We do have two projects ongoing right now, and we are prototyping several of them.
Cool. So Mert, you go, please.
Yeah, also great to be here. Thank you, Ersin. So I am Mert. I'm founder of Troy. Troy is the only and the largest gaming guild right now in emerging markets and especially in Turkey. So my background is in investment banking. I worked at Morgan Stanley for several years, extensively in gaming. And while I was working there, I was primarily focused in the financial data on how gaming companies actually generate revenue, and obviously the M&A deal starting with Zynga's acquisition of Peak Games. And then here on there, while I was looking at the data, I discovered Web3 gaming and NFTs and how it can actually benefit the whole ecosystem in terms of user acquisition as well as new revenue streams. And then I made the leap into the into Web3 gaming thereafter.
Cool. So why don't you tell about your stories in the Web3 gaming world? How did you start doing it, and maybe a little perspective on also the history of Web3 gaming so far, from your perspective. Mert, would you like to start?
Yeah, definitely. So I was involved with Web3 gaming actually since I guess summer of 2020. And where I was actually researching a lot about Web3 gaming, starting with Axie Infinity, kind of like the pioneer in the space. And although the game was not particularly fun with me as a kind of like an avid fan of FIFA games and sports games, I was still trying it out, right? And then the kind of how it clicked with me is that at the same time I was looking at a lot of gaming deals, mostly with Zynga, and then looking at the financial data and the revenues and the geographies that people generate revenue from in Web2 gaming, especially in mobile casual. To give you an example, it's usually 70% US, 20% Europe, and then 10% Asia, Japan, and other geographies, right? And then with Axie Infinity, because all was public, it was actually reversed. It was in the whole kind of like revenue was coming from Philippines as well as Asia, Thailand, and then there was just little click of Turkey in there, but that was it, and that was really interesting to me. So looking at the in-app purchases and the NFTs and how they actually benefit a particular game studio's revenue streams, I went into the retention rates, and looking at the retention rates, I noticed that people are really kind of hesitant on making more and more in-app purchases, and the willingness to spend is actually going down in some sense, especially with regular game titles, right? So I figured that, and it was just a speculation, if you actually programmatize them through NFTs, then the conversion rate would go up because as person, as a gamer, I would have spent more if I was able to actually sell the items in the market, right? So then in February of 2022, I guess, I noticed kind of like an opportunity, especially in these geographies, where the guild business model, giving access to NFTs to regular people, regular gamers, was actually non-existent. And looking at Philippines, where minimum wage is $250 against Turkey's right now $230 or something, it was only natural that such a business model should have actually existed in the likes of these geographies. So then I went on to business and founded Troy, which kind of like grew in itself. And from February, from zero up to June, we became a hardcore gaming community of 25,000 people, and rolled out our own protocol.
Cool, cool. Nice story. Ibrahim?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks. We also kind of have similar background with the Mark. Like we also start searching or doing the research on the blockchain gaming since the 2020. But even though we just started like 9 months ago, so we have kind of background that we play and try to understand, you know, doing some game design ideas around the blockchain gaming, how we can just like bring our muscles from the Web2 to into the Web3 gaming. So then we just want to, so we just say that like enough for the the talking and doing the brainstorming. Let's just start doing something. So then we always approach the same things, like proven always better than newer. So we just like search through all the blockchain gaming, all the blockchain projects, and see, and then there's the blueprint, right? So we just like got the blueprint and try to make it better. So because we also have a great muscles on building the games, developing the games, etc. And so we just like for the Spimulate, for our first project, so we just to collect all the data and try to build up something new. But then we noticed that there's something the missing on the current blockchain gamings. So the games are not fun because everyone's saying the same thing. There are lots of inflations on the tokens and etc. and etc. It's going and everything. So our first game, Spimulate, just the basic traditional approach. So we have the tokens, everything, but to be honest, just we want to improve that. So what we believe is that Suji Games is, so it was like a old gen of blockchain gaming, and the new gen will be something different. Matt also focused something on his talk, like about the in-app purchasing. So we also believe the same thing. So even though the in-app purchases are NFTs, and you can also really combine them, but we also need to consider that will the secondary marketplace transactions or the volumes will affect our primary sales. This is really something that we need to also think, because on Web2, we really want to sell the in-app purchases, okay? Because there's no limitation, so we can sell anything, we can onboard the player, we can do the user records and everything. But when it comes to the Web3, the problem is, secondary marketplaces are good. So the transaction and combining everything. But you also need to, as a company, you also don't want to, block your revenue streams coming from the primary sales. So we are still don't know how to do it, but we want to find the solution of each problems, and want to be one of the pioneers of the blockchain gaming, because we really focus on here. And even though we are not happy with the current the conditions, but we believe that in the future there will be more improvements, just like me, Troy, and you together, like everything, because we are on the same boat.
Yeah, sure. So to wrap up your stories, I was fascinated by your finding that Southeast Asia, the Philippines and Vietnamese, were doing most of the traffic in Axie Infinity and Play to Earn games. I think that also did ring a bell, right?
Yeah.
These are the poor countries, whereas in classical gaming, I got friends, they prefer US market for App Store, for example, where they get most of the revenue. So that might ring some bell for Play to Earn. And when you mentioned the secondary market, that's interesting. I think that's one of the places where Web3 has an edge, or as an option can provide something cool to the gamer that love privacy and freedom and liberty. So we don't see secondary markets in like mobile gaming and in Steam, most of the PC gaming, console gaming, and everything. But we see secondary market very active, actually being the majority in most cases here. Okay, so let's talk about the future. Okay, future. So we now know a little bit of how we came here, where we come from, and I heard that you started 2020, which is very new, right? It's so we can say, I think, safely say that Web3 gaming is in its nascent phase. It's like a baby now. So where do we go from here? So who wants to get the shot? You, Ryan?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, you were rolling. Yeah, you were rolling good. So please,
no
go ahead.
So what I believe that for the future, I think I always say the same. Like blockchain is inevitable. So sooner or later, like we will have more game developers that will focus on the blockchain. At least try to find a better way to use the blockchain technology. I always say that we can use the blockchain as a transaction provider or as like in-app purchases solutions and everything. But what I also see that the NFT, crypto, everything, all those words have the bad reputation. As a game developers, we need to fix this one. We need to find a better way. For example, all of our marketing activities, we are not using play to earn, play and earn, NFT, and all the stuff, because we know that when people see the NFT, they just it's just immediately red flags. So people don't want to go on it because even though we have a Web3 users, audience, and everything, but we need to bring more people from Web2. We need to remove all the fractions. So the creating the wallet is something that really frustrating, even if for me, like our game developers or marketing artists, because when we want to test them to our games, so we missed them, we lost them at some point. I was in New York NFT NYC, so I was listening one speech, and they said that there's 36 different levels if you want to create a wallet, just on everything, because even it's starting from the thinking of creating the wallet, and the finding the balance and everything, going to Binance or other marketplaces, or other markets to to buy coins, then make the transactions and everything. So it's really frustrating for the Web2 people. So as a game developers, we need to find a solution, and we need to think that how we can bring more Web2 users here. So we don't care about the play to earn, play and earn. We always want to stay away from all those speculations, because the game is there. It needs to be game. We always say the same thing. Like on the Web2, if game doesn't have player engagement, player retention, you cannot monetize it. You can have better game, but you can have some says that okay, I can easily copy Candy Crush monetization model and I will be a millionaire. You cannot. Even if you don't have a great game, if you don't have a stickiness with the game, you cannot do that. So you need to have the game. We need to find a good balance between the game and the economy. So as a game developer, we need to focus on this part. And as I say, it's our business too. It's our job to change all the bad reputations of the blockchain.
Cool. And you, Mert?
Yeah, I'll go just above and under on Ibrahim's point. So the above point is that I agree, and what I agree on is that you gotta have a great gameplay, right? So having a great gameplay is still gaming, still core concept, and it doesn't matter if you mint NFTs or if you mint them through IAPs or if you sell them through App Store. It really doesn't matter. If you don't have a great gameplay, it doesn't matter because it won't get played, right? Especially in this bear market where the kind of like winners and losers get separated. But we all know that. So the more detailed point is that on how to do it, because there are actually two models I think that are going to survive. One is, which is what we have seen so far. You have NFTs, you mint them, you sell them on the open market, you have no game whatsoever. You just have guilds, some friends, some connections. You sell the NFTs and you make a promise that you are going to build a great game. And we go with it, right? And we buy them. But especially in a bear market, that doesn't work because as I said, the elite players are separated from non-elite players. So what I mean by that is you have a team that that has origins in electronic arts, and then you have a team in another mid-core casual studio. It doesn't mean that the casual studio is not talented, but if when you put in that brand of electronic arts having a core team from there on, they are able to sell their NFTs upfront to players, to guilds, whatsoever, and then raise funding and then go on, right? But if you are in the other class, which is the majority, which only makes sense, what you should do, I think, and what should be done, even as a guild, as kind of like buyer of these NFTs, is you gotta give your game as free to play. So free to play is going nowhere. Free to play is here to stay, is what I mean, right? So once you have an NFT, once you have an NFT-based game, if you offer the game in a free-to-play sense, and especially if it is in a casual mobile game, then people are going to play it, and you will have the opportunity to build upon it, right? Otherwise, I'm going to buy the NFTs and play it around, and if you don't keep on building on those, I'm just going to sell them in the open market. I don't care, because it's your job to build a great game, right? And the way to do it is to offer it F2P, and then the premium assets on which we both make money and which we know players are willing to spend can be promised and can be offered as NFTs, as premium assets. And they will buy it out of convenience, through convenience, or with will, because it's just premium. It's just a better way of dealing with in-app purchases. And that's kind of like how I feel about both levels.
Cool, cool. So to wrap up what you've said so far, you talked about stickiness. I like it. I talked to a lot of mainnet guys, and to me, mainnets are very important, and I'll do anything I can to support them. And one critic I tell them is that they have funds to attract, users, that they fill in the play-to-earn pools or developers and everything, especially the play-to-earn pools. But we've seen that those money goes away to gamers without any return or good return. What I propose is you should use your funds on sticky games or apps. So remember the play to earn, that was a good question. Play to earn or rewarding helps when it's temporary and limited. So those funds should be used in that way, meaning that a mainnet gives some like play to earn funds to a game, and it is used as a reward to gamers in a play to earn scheme. But if the game is sticky, if the game is good, and if they make it right, when the fund is over, we hope that a high enough percentage of the gamers stay. Could be even a mobile game, it could be a big RPG game. Imagine in our case, we're working on RPG. Gamer comes, becomes a part of the game world, becomes a member of a guild, invests his time, socializing, high ranks in the guild and everything. So when the pool is over, he's there for the fun, for the socialization, for the game, so he stays there. So stickiness is, I think, an important factor when we say game first. And one of the things I hope gaming will help mass adoption for blockchain, and only the sticky games, I would say, in temporary play-to-earn scheme will help that. And when it comes to you, you were talking about NFTs, and I also realized that web3 games can be without tokens. You can have tokens and NFTs, or NFTs, So I see good examples where there's no tokens, but NFTs in a game environment. But of course, you can have token alternative for some, free trade in crypto asset as well. Okay, so any last remarks that you would like to comment on the viewer as we're approaching like the final rounds? Any remarks you would like to say, oh, I don't want to forget talking about these on Web3 and gaming for the future?
I don't have
you covered it pretty much, yeah.
My only remark would be, like we are in a conference, predominated by Web2 game studios, right? And it's basically a hyper casual gaming conference. And you all know how Web2 works, how publishing works. You have done all these deals. My only 2 cents would be to just try it out, right? Experiment with it. Web3 is, no, especially right now, no regulation, kind of like what we can say upon it, right? And there is nothing that requires regulation, so to speak, if you don't want to do rug pulls, etc., right? So no scamming of the users, but just experiment it. Don't release tokens, as Arsen said. No utility tokens are necessary. You could, but you don't really need it. It's just an overhead for you. Release your IAPs as NFTs, generate more revenue stream for yourself, build a community in Discord, or speak to us, to Troy, to whatever guild you are interested in cooperating, and then get feedback on your game. Just regular feedback and build on top of it. The game stays the same, even if you offer it in App Store or in Web3 or somewhere else, or Play Store or in console, but you gotta prove upon it. But once you prove upon it, you will see that in Web3, the opportunity that you have, both in terms of user acquisition, the user pooling, and the revenue stream that you can generate upon them, not only through primary or secondary sales, but continuing subscription-like sales through attracting new users for rentals, for secondary sales in royalties, etc. You will have a greater opportunity to do it. And the only thing is kind of like a leap of faith on releasing your game as a Web3 game and just trying it out.
Yeah, I like the experimenting with it. So I have given this advice to a lot of game studios I met in Gamescom here as well. So as I remember my previous talk, the scientific method, experimenting is good. Unfortunately, blockchain development is a little different and difficult, can be expensive, and most game studios don't know blockchain development. They want to keep doing what they love doing, what they're good at doing, so they don't want to build blockchain teams and maintain those teams. But good news, now there are very early stage projects that are called like no-code app decentralizers or no-code blockchain enablers, which can help game studios tap into Web3, experiment with Web3 revenue models, like kind of free of charge, and you don't have to build this blockchain team. And it's like they make token creation, tokenomics creation, NFT, marketplace, wallet, interbridging, fiat-friendly option, all these technicalities automatic for you. And they also give you Unity, Unreal, JavaScript, C++, C# SDKs, which are Web2 SDKs that you're used to working with. So if you're a Unity developer, you can just download the asset from the asset store, which is a Web2 SDK, through which you can access your automatically created smart contract functionality from within your Unity code or C# code. So now that we're having these technologies that you can use free of charge, I would really, suggest game studios also experiment with that free of charge. And one last thing, one of the things that we all agree is that game first, got to be a fun game. But I want to make sure that when I say game first, people think that I'm talking about AAA, like RPG, MMORPG, or games like Heroes Chain, for example, probably because I'm from Heroes Chain team. But let me make clear that when I say game first, I don't mean a big game. It can be mobile, even hyper casual. So I would argue, I would love to test it. I could talk to Trug Nguyen, the leader of Axie Infinity, and I had the chance, like 30 minutes talk with him. I would love to see what happened or what happens when Axie Infinity becomes a mobile game, free to play. I think I have criticized it from the player perspective, but it might do a good job, reach millions of gamers, because it is better than many hyper-casual games out there. And it has been able to form social guilds and everything. So I believe that if Axie Infinity went or goes the free-to-play, way, it can succeed, it can sustain. But I believe it was the play-to-earn model that I explained in my previous talk that really first hyped it and then crashed it. So, I wanted to make sure that when we say game first, we're not talking about big AAA games here. Any game that can succeed using the best practices of gaming and science and psychology. So really thank you. It was a lovely chat,
Yeah.
which sort of complemented to the previous chats we had. So from the audience, we got like 34 minutes. Any questions you want to ask to our guests or me? Yeah, sure.
So, when we think about Web2, the biggest innovators were small companies. Like, we didn't know anything about Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg before Web2. And now we are seeing that big companies are trying to integrate some features of Web2 to Web2, but they are not switching their ideology to Web3.
Mm-hmm.
And they are also having some big blocks in terms of this because they have some backdoor strategies and they are trying to still grow their old studio models. And do you think that big companies are going to be successful in this Web3 work, or new companies or new studios will be more successful and more elastic in terms of Web3 development? I'm not sure.
So yeah. But who,
Maybe Mr. Ibrahim can answer because they have already some different strategies, and I'm not sure if it's blocking the Web3 ideas of those.
Yeah, I think running big company is really difficult. Like when the Facebook or Twitter tries to bring something on Web3, so I think they can be really, in terms of the speed, they can be late, but there will be new startups are coming that I know that they are working on how to bring a Web3 technology here and trying to I wouldn't say copy, but trying to, the influence from the Web2 business model and trying to merge into the Web3. I think the new startups will come up. This is what I believe, because the old ones will stay as a business mind. So even if they don't have the complete change or their management, I think it will be a big problem for them because there will be a lot of regulations for them. There will be a lot of, the fractions on the, the idea from to decision. But I think the new, I think everyone says like, the next big thing. Maybe the next big thing on Web3 will come up to new startups, I guess. This can be anyone from the audience. I can suggest that like try everything that you can. Mert and also Harrison also suggest that like experiment. So experimenting is kind of free with the new technologies that no-code providers, no-code solution providers provide. But just try. There's nothing to lose. Actually, this is my belief, but maybe the others will have a counter-argument. But I believe that it will come up from the new startups.
okay. So Mert, you have any?
Yeah,
ideas?
no, I agree. The bottom line is they are big, but if there's an opportunity in building a startup in Web2 and Web3, I personally did in Web3 because you are much more kind of like likely to succeed than in Web3, than in Web2 in Web3, right? Just because like the likes of, I don't know, Meta, Twitter, or any other kind of like Zynga, Upload, and they don't have gatekeeping capability in there. They are trying to build it, but they can't because it's basically public, right? So if I know your wallet address, I can see all your transactions, all your activity, which is both good and bad when you look at it in terms of privacy, but that's another topic.
Yeah, and let me add a remark. If I take a look at the history of technology, we have all these catastrophic moments and new rises of new technologies. Microsoft was pretty small, two guys, and Bill Gates and the other one, Paul Allen, and IBM was huge, but then Microsoft got bigger, but IBM survived. Likewise, Apple was a garage, thing. Google was so small to friends from university, etc. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg stories, filmed. So timing is very important here. For example, did you know that Larry Page is the Google's founder? Ranking algorithm, search algorithm, was invented by some other guys 10 years before. But it was not the right time because at that time, the amount of information on the internet was not too much. And that good of ranking based on other ones' references was not relevant. But 10 years later, so much information, that mattered. Same for Facebook when we had smartphone revolution, Facebook took off. So I think we have some good of a time window, opportunity window for new startups with this web3 revolution coming. I'm bullish on some of the startups. Very few, but very few though, will succeed. And I'm also bullish that the big guys will continue. They will convert. And I also trust them in a way that they have faith in serving their clients. And I also have confidence that if we can explain them that zero knowledge technology can help them, find solutions that can address their issues with the regulators on privacy, things like that. So as long as it's good for these big guys, I think they're going to be here. And when they're in, I think that's going to be exciting as well. So we're running out of time now. Thank you for your participation. You can continue asking questions to us. We're just right outside. Thank you.
Thank you.